Greetings, traveler. For more than 20 years, the Oblivion Crisis was one of Oblivion's weakest parts because of how repetitive the gates became. But Skyblivion may turn them into one of its strongest features. A living, layered Daedric world that finally feels real, the way it always should have been. And now, I'm going to show you every detail I was able to find. Enjoy watching. Kvatch, the city where the Oblivion Crisis first revealed its true scale. This was the first time we saw that what happened to a city was not just a local tragedy, but a full-scale catastrophe. And in Skyblivion it feels even stronger now, because even from a distance the city already looks like it has truly been destroyed by an invasion. The developers also mentioned that they wanted the approach to Kvatch to feel as if people had fled in a hurry and left things behind, but that is only a small part of what we're going to see here.
That's amazing.
Because even from the footage they have already shown, it is clear that in Skyblivion, Kvatch no longer looks like just a place where something happened. It looks like a city that has just survived a real assault. Right at the entrance, you can already see broken wagons, barricades, debris, cracked ground, dead trees, and the portal itself in front of the main gates. And once you move further in, the difference becomes even harsher. In the original Oblivion, Kvatch felt very empty. It felt more like a ruined fortress or a quest arena than a city where real people had been living just the day before. Now, to be fair, one part of the city was actually packed with houses, but that wasn't really the overall impression Kvatch gave. And because of that, the catastrophe itself felt weaker than it should have. In Skyblivion, it is completely different. There is more fire, more destruction, more consequences, and it feels much more like this is not just scenery, but a city space that has genuinely been broken apart. I also want to point out that the devs themselves said they kept Kvatch closer to the original, so it would be easier to make comparison shots, but at the same time, they added new events, some exploration, and new scenes inside the segment itself. And according to them, the city section was built with an emphasis on barricades, destruction, death, large numbers of bodies, and even heads on spikes throughout the city. On top of that, there will still be a large number of enemies here, including Dremora, and because of that, it feels less like the aftermath of a catastrophe and more like an actual assault on the city. And as you approach the castle, it becomes especially clear how desperately the guards tried to hold it, because judging by the footage shown, scamps were literally swarming them in packs right in the middle of the battle. They also described the castle as being completely overrun by Daedra and engulfed in flames. And the strongest part here is not even just the architecture. The strongest part is how Skyblivion changes the very nature of violence in Kvatch. Because in the original, you mostly arrived after the tragedy had already happened. But now, we will have execution scenes that directly show the brutality of the Dremora when you find civilians in the city. And that is a very important difference, because now Kvatch does not just sell the aftermath of catastrophe. It sells the feeling that the catastrophe is still unfolding right in front of your eyes. So it is hard not to agree that in Skyblivion, Kvatch is finally starting to work the way it always should have, because the level of immersion here is already on a completely different level. One of the main problems with the original Oblivion was that, over time, many of the gates started to blur into the same exact thing. But Skyblivion is handling it differently, the way it always should have been. One of the devs said directly that it was important for each realm to feel distinct. And when it comes to the main Deadlands, we already know that we are getting two different types. The Burn, which grows out of vanilla Oblivion, and this is also where those dead trees from the dev videos come in, because according to Kyle, this area includes the so-called Forest of Death, a space designed to make the Daedra feel more wild and primal. Then there is the Sever from the Elder Scrolls Online, where the space is defined by constant lightning strikes and pools of hissing acid. And the shared idea now is that the moment you enter any of them, you should immediately see the tower you need to reach. At the same time, the path toward it should not feel as tedious as it did in old Oblivion. On top of that, the devs almost said outright that they want towers and realms to feel like places where Daedra are perceived as living beings, with their own violent culture, mages, foot soldiers, and even some basic sense of daily life. Because of that, they do not want to leave rooms as empty boxes, and instead they fill them with clutter, books, items. In short, everything that makes it clear these creatures are not just standing there for a fight, they actually occupy this space and use it as a base. So what we are getting is not just a set of combat arenas, but places where Daedra truly exist as a hostile culture. And I am not even talking yet about the other unique spaces in Oblivion Remake that are already waiting for us. If you truly enjoy my Elder Scrolls content, don't just pass by. Subscribe to the channel because more than 90% just move on. And if you're ready to take a step fewer than 1% are willing to take and get some extra bonuses too, become a channel sponsor. That kind of support helps me keep growing the channel steadily. Thank you, and let's keep going. And this is where the topic of Daedric armor connects really well, because through it, Skyblivion effectively shows the internal hierarchy of the Dremora. Crafty Tom explained that lower ranking Dremora wear cheaper armor that looks as if it was literally poured, fused and seared straight onto their flesh, and you can actually see that hierarchy quite clearly. Dremora churls wear the rougher version of this armor, and they are also the ones among whom we see mages, while Dremora lords appear in a much more refined forged plate set that immediately brings to mind the Daedric armor from the original Oblivion. And that raises an interesting question, because if it looks like we may be able to get the rougher version of the armor as loot after defeating Dremora, while the elite lord's set was shown through magical summoning, then the question is this: will we also be able to obtain that Dremora Lord armor ourselves, for example as loot, or at least forge it by finding the right recipe? Especially since, if I remember correctly, Kyle previously mentioned that there would be special rewards for world exploration, and the Oblivion realms are not an exception here. So it is entirely possible that somewhere there we may find the recipe for these plated Dremora armors. And then all of this is reinforced even further by the ambushes. Penrooted directly showed that they have a separate ambush warehouse, and that they are making not only regular ambushes, but scripted ones too. And you can really see it in the footage. Something bursts out of fire, something else literally crashes into the scene like a fiery comet. And judging by the footage they have shown, some enemies can even crawl out of openings in the environment. So the Daedra are not just standing around waiting for you to reach them. They are literally invading the space and breaking the scene around you. And after that, they still do not behave like ordinary combat targets. Penrooted directly showed scenes where Clanfear or Daedroth can feed on corpses. And that is already a powerful detail, not because it is just a cool animation, but because it completely changes the way these creatures feel. They do not behave like standard enemies from an encounter zone, they behave like predators in a world that has already been broken. Also, while traveling through the Oblivion realms, we will see various structures that make this space feel even more inhabited. This includes distinctive archer towers and small Dremora settlements where you can already spot tents, fences and other everyday details. And what is especially interesting is that in one of these places you can see a weapon rack holding a two-handed axe and, most importantly, several spears. And once again, that raises a question for me. Does this mean that in Skyblivion we may finally see fully functional spears in combat? I already have a separate video on this topic on the channel, so the card should be on your screen right now. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. Links to the main sources are in the description. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to support the channel even more, you can become a sponsor. It really helps me keep making content like this. See you in the next video.